In 1983, the CIA commissioned a classified report that concluded human consciousness can leave the body, and they spent 20 years trying to weaponize it. What if I told you that somewhere in the CIA's archives sits a 28-page document that bridges quantum physics, ancient meditation, and out-of-body experiences, and that the US government thought it was important enough to classify for 2 decades? And here's the part they really didn't want you to see. When they finally declassified it in 2003, one page was missing, page 25, gone. For nearly 40 years, nobody could find it. What was on that page was so significant that people filed Freedom of Information requests for decades trying to get it back. Today, we're going to break down exactly what the CIA found, the science, the technique, and what was on that missing page. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why monks have been doing this for 3,000 years without needing a government budget. Let's start at the beginning. In the 1950s, a radio broadcasting executive named Robert Monroe noticed something strange. He'd been experimenting with sound patterns. Different frequencies played into each ear, and the effects were unexpected. He started having involuntary out-of-body experiences, not dreams, not hallucinations. He described floating above his own bed, fully conscious, looking down at his sleeping body. This happened 9 times in 6 weeks. Now, Monroe wasn't a mystic. He wasn't some guru in a cave. He was a Virginia businessman in a suit, and that's exactly what made people take notice. He spent the next 2 decades studying this phenomenon, eventually founding the Monroe Institute in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. He patented a technique he called Hemi-Sync, short for hemispheric synchronization. Here's the thing. While Monroe was mapping consciousness in Virginia, the Cold War was raging. A classified 1972 report reached US intelligence agencies, claiming the Soviet Union was pouring millions into psychic research, ESP, telekinesis, remote viewing. The Soviets believed consciousness could be used as a weapon. And that's when the CIA came knocking on Robert Monroe's door. In 1983, the commander of the US Army Operational Group tasked Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonnell with a remarkable assignment. Go to the Monroe Institute, study the Gateway experience, and write a scientific assessment of whether human consciousness can actually transcend the body. The result was a 28-page classified report titled Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process. And what McDonnell found changed everything. Now here's where it gets wild. To understand what McDonnell discovered, you need to understand one concept, binaural beats. It's simpler than it sounds. You put on headphones. One ear hears a tone at, say, 200 hertz. The other ear hears 204 hertz. Your brain can't process the mismatch, so it creates a third tone, a phantom frequency. In this case, 4 hertz. That's a theta wave. The same brainwave state that Tibetan monks reach after years of meditation. And here's the neuroscience that makes this real. Your brain has a measurable response called the frequency following response. When exposed to a rhythmic external stimulus, your neurons literally sync up to match it. A 2025 study published in Nature's Scientific Reports confirmed this. Binaural beats cause measurable brainwave entrainment. Your brain's electrical patterns shift to match the beat frequency. But Monroe didn't just create theta waves. He layered frequencies, multiple binaural beats at different levels, some subliminal. The goal wasn't just relaxation, it was something McDonnell described using a brilliant analogy. Left to its own devices, your mind expends energy like a light bulb. Diffuse, scattered, illuminating a lot, but penetrating nothing. But under Hemi-Sync, your consciousness becomes a laser beam. Coherent, focused, powerful enough to, as McDonnell put it, synchronize with the rarefied energy levels of the universe. And it gets better. McDonnell brought in Itzhak Bentov, a brilliant Israeli-American biomedical engineer, to help explain the mechanics. Bentov showed that when the body enters deep resonance through Hemi-Sync, something remarkable happens. Your heart rate drops. Your body begins vibrating at a frequency between 6.8 and 7.5 hertz. That number should stop you cold. Because Earth's own electromagnetic resonance, the Schumann resonance, pulses at 7.83 hertz. Your body, in this state, literally tunes to the frequency of the planet. But here's where it gets really interesting, because McDonnell didn't stop at brainwaves. He went deeper, way deeper. The CIA report doesn't just talk about relaxation or focus. It makes a series of extraordinary claims, backed by the physics of the time, about the fundamental nature of reality itself. First, matter doesn't exist, not in the way you think. McDonnell writes that the atomic structure is composed entirely of oscillating energy grids, spinning at unimaginable speeds. What we experience as solid reality is actually patterns of energy vibrating at different frequencies. Your hand, this screen, the chair you're sitting in, it's all vibrating energy. Nothing is truly solid. Second, this is the big one. Consciousness is not produced by the brain. According to the Gateway Report, consciousness is the organizing and sustaining principle that brings and keeps energy in motion. Read that again. The CIA's own commissioned report concluded that consciousness isn't a byproduct of brain chemistry. It's the fundamental force that organizes reality itself. And third, the out-of-body state. McDonnell describes it as projection of a major portion of the energy pattern that represents human consciousness, so that it may move freely throughout the terrestrial sphere for purposes of information acquisition, or into other dimensions outside of time-space. Perhaps to interact with other forms of consciousness. That's not a meditation teacher talking. That's not a YouTube guru. That's a U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel writing in an official classified report for the CIA, and he recommends they pursue it. Now, let's talk about the holographic universe. This is where the Gateway Report goes from fascinating to genuinely mind-bending. McDonnell builds a model of reality that draws on physicist David Bohm's implicate order theory and Carl Pribram's holonomic brain model. Here's the core idea. The universe is a hologram, not metaphorically. The report describes what it calls a cosmic egg, a toroidal energy pattern where matter flows from a white hole at the nucleus, travels around the shell, and returns through a black hole. The interference patterns created by this process form what McDonnell calls the universal hologram, a torus that contains information about the past, present, and future simultaneously. And your brain? It works the same way. The report states that the human mind is a holographic projector. It generates its own hologram, your personal experience of reality, which then interfaces with the universal hologram. When you achieve the right frequency through Hemi-Sync, when your consciousness becomes coherent like a laser, your personal hologram can sync with the universal one. And that's when things like intuition, remote viewing, and out-of-body experiences become possible. You're not leaving your body. You're tuning your consciousness to access information that was always there, embedded in the holographic structure of reality itself. And now, the missing page. For nearly 40 years, page 25 of the Gateway Report was gone. The CIA claimed they never had it. People filed FOIA requests. Conspiracy theories swirled. One theory said McDonnell left it out deliberately. When if you could really astral project, you'd be able to read it yourself. But in 2021, the page surfaced. The Monroe Institute had it buried in their archives in Virginia the whole time. And what did it say? It described the absolute, the infinite energy field that powers the entire universal hologram. An energy state with no location, no momentum, outside of space-time entirely. And then McDonnell dropped this line. A stylized representation of this cosmic spiral exists in every major religious tradition in human history. The Christian Holy Spirit, the Hebrew Tree of Life, the Hindu Kundalini serpent, the Chinese spiral through the four powers, the Hellenic labyrinth. Every single one of them arrived at through thousands of years of meditation and contemplation, described the same structure that McDonnell mapped using quantum physics and binaural beats in a CIA laboratory. So, what does this mean for you? Here's the practical part. Because this isn't just theory, you can actually try this. The gateway tapes that Monroe created still exist. The Monroe Institute is still operating in Virginia, and their programs have exploded in popularity. A 35% increase in participants since the pandemic. Over 83,000 people are in the Gateway Tapes subreddit right now, sharing their experiences. But you don't need to fly to Virginia or buy expensive programs to start. Here's what the science actually supports. Step 1. Get a pair of decent headphones. Binaural beats only work with stereo separation. You need left and right ears hearing different frequencies. Step 2. Find binaural beat tracks in the theta range, around 4 to 7 hertz. These are freely available. The Monroe Institute's Expand app has introductory content. There are also quality options on YouTube and Spotify. Step 3. Lie down in a quiet, dark room. The gateway process requires what McDonnell called physical quietude, Your body needs to approach a sleep-like state while your mind stays awake. Step 4, and this is the key most people miss: set an intention. The Gateway Report emphasizes that consciousness is directed by intention. Monroe called it an affirmation. Before each session, clearly state what you want to explore: focus, relaxation, self-knowledge. Don't just put on headphones and drift. Direct the laser. A 2017 peer-reviewed study involving military personnel found measurable changes in brain states using Hemi-Sync. And a 2025 Nature study confirmed that binaural beats produce real, observable brainwave entrainment. This isn't pseudoscience. The mechanism is verified. What you do with that mechanism, how far you take it, that's up to you. Here's what stays with me about the Gateway process. In 1983, a U.S. Army officer sat down and wrote in a classified government document that consciousness is not confined to the brain, that reality is a hologram, that human awareness can transcend space and time, and that every major spiritual tradition in history already knew this. The monks knew. The mystics knew. The CIA confirmed it. The only question left is, what are you going to do with that information? In the next video, we're going to go deeper into something the Gateway Report only hints at: the neuroscience of why your brain was designed to access these states and what happens when you actually get there. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And if this changed how you think about consciousness, even a little, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because the most classified thing in the world isn't a weapons program or a spy network. It's what you're capable of when you stop believing your mind ends at your skull.